Hi guys, welcome back. This is Matt Chat number 74, featuring one of the greatest real-time strategy games of all time, Westwood Studios Dune II.
The planet Arrakis, known as Doon. Land of sand. Home of the spice, melange. The spice controls the empire. Whoever controls Doon controls the spice. The Emperor has proposed a challenge to each of the houses.
The house that produces the most spice will control Doon. There are no set territories and no rules of engagement.
Vast armies have arrived. Now, 3 houses fight for control of Doon. The noble Atreides. The insidious Ordos. And the evil Harkonnen. Only one house will prevail. Your battle for Doon begins now.
Dune 2 is the first modern real-time strategy game. Now, it's not the first real-time strategy game. There are plenty of precedents. One that gets brought up a lot is Herzog Zwei. That's a 1990 game published by a Japanese company for the Sega Genesis, aka Mega Drive. But we could talk about earlier games. Oh my god, there's Citron Masters, a 1980 game by Dan Bunton, aka Daniel Bunton Berry. A really great game, very early game that combines a lot of the elements that we'll see in Dune 2. Now you might be wondering, where's Dune 1? And this is an interesting story in and of itself. What happened was the publishing company Virgin had acquired the rights to make games based on Dune, and they were going to make a set of games, so they had a French company called Cryo to make Dune. But they also commissioned Westwood Studio to make another Dune game, which ended up being Dune 2. Now, these aren't really sequels. They're not really related at all, other than, of course, sharing the license for the Dune stuff. So, if you're wondering that, it is sort of a mess, but we can really look at Dune 2 by itself. Now, it's produced by Brett Sperry and published in 1992, the same year as the other Dune I was talking about. And it was inspired by the Macintosh operating system, if you can believe that. Brett Sperry was an Apple II programmer since he was 16 years old, and he had migrated to the Macintosh and was really impressed with the mouse-driven graphical user interface, all the windows and icons and context-driven menus. So he was, at the time, he was wondering how to improve the strategy genre, which he felt was sort of dying at the time. He thought it needed a blood infusion. And we certainly got that with Dune 2. And it was that mouse-driven interface that made it possible. Otherwise, it'd be very difficult to control all those different units in real time using just the keyboard. Now, Brett says he was also inspired by Populous, which is another great blend of action and strategy, probably worthy of a match hat in a future episode, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, we've got a lot to cover here, so without further ado, here is Dune 2. Now, the first thing you have to do is to select one of these three houses.
House Atreides.
Each of the houses has its own personality and backstory, but most importantly, special units.
House Harkonnen.
The Harkonnen are the evil guys, the Atreides are the good guys. They're the ones that star in the books and movie.
House Ordos.
Now, House Ordos only exists in some off-canon stuff like the Doon Encyclopedia, but I think it makes the game a lot better than if it just had two houses, so I'm very glad they added that third house. Now, at the start of each scenario, you get a little message from your Mentat. He'll tell you what your orders are, and they also have advice for you later in the game. Now, Dune 2, as you might expect, is similar to the later games in that you have quite a bit of stuff to do right at the beginning, and it's very critical that you get it going as soon as possible. Probably the first thing you should do is explore the area a little bit. You notice we have all this fog of war around us, these shadows, but we need to send some soldiers or vehicles out there to check that out. And at the same time, we need to start construction. We'll need some wind turbines or windmills for energy, and also a spice refinery so we can start collecting the all-important spice as soon as possible.
Approaching from the west.
Now here we have the first of what will undoubtedly be many battles. Fortunately, this opening scenario is very easy. Just send a few guys out to kill these soldiers. Later on, this will get so much more complex because we'll have all of these different kinds of units we can build and upgrade, and you have to consider what your enemy is building and how best to counter. Now, I must say this game is very demanding of your attention. You have to concentrate very hard to keep track of all of the stuff that's going on. You have buildings and structures and units being constructed. You have battles that'll start taking place in multiple locations. So you're sending troops here, you're sending troops there. Then you have little nagging things. For instance, if your silos fill up, the spicy harvest will be wasted. So you always have to think ahead and plan ahead. Now, obviously, a lot of this stuff will be lost on you when you first start out, but eventually it'll all make sense. One of the many things I love about Dune 2 is that the learning curve feels just right. I mean, just when you're finally feeling comfortable with everything, suddenly you have some new units to build, or suddenly there's some new challenges on the board, such as the sandworms. Of course, you have to have sandworms. This is Dune, after all. As you can see here, I'm being attacked by a very powerful enemy. I have to keep up my construction, keep up my harvesting, all the while trying to meet my mission objectives and keep some basic form of sanity going here. It's a lot more fun than it might look. You really have to give this game a chance.
Yes, sir.
And here we have the Amiga version of the game, which, as you can see, looks very good. They did a great job on the graphics. Maybe a little less detailed, but who cares about that? Still plays great. The only big problem is it came on 6 discs, and you constantly had to switch these things around. A lot of you guys probably don't even know what the hell I'm talking about, but trust me, it was a pain. Of course, Westwood Studios is one of the most celebrated software houses. They got started in '85. It was just Brett Sperry and Louis Castle. They were coding out of a garage in Las Vegas. And they made some great games. We've got Mars Saga, Battletech, Crescent Hawk's Inception. That's one of my favorite games. As well as Eye of the Beholder, probably the first great computer role-playing game after the Gold Box games went out of publication. After this, they'd go on to make Command and Conquer. Yeah, you've heard of these guys. Now, in addition to the Amiga port, there's also a Sega Genesis port that was in the same year. And I gotta say, these guys did a wonderful job adapting this game to the Sega Genesis. They, of course, had to simplify the control scheme, but not nearly as much as you might think. This is still a very complex and involved game, and a lot of fun. And I really like the music and the sound effects. Of course, the Genesis had great equipment for that, and they took full advantage of it here. So if you have lucky enough to have a Sega Genesis, I would definitely recommend checking out this port. Now the one downside is there's no save game functionality. It'll just give you a code when you try to save the game, which is better than nothing, but definitely inconvenient. Nevertheless, all things considered, I don't think there's anything shameful about this port. If you don't want to mess around with trying to find the PC version, I would definitely recommend this.
Instruction.
Now, if for whatever reason you don't want to play the Sega Genesis version, here's a remake called The Golden Path. There's several remakes, actually, of Doon II that are freely available. This was the only one I was able to get to work without a great deal of trouble. And this is freely available, as far as I know, open source. There's a few little glitches, as you can see there at the top. But this seems to play really well, and I really like the added resolution, the ability to see a large part of the map. And they've got I didn't really delve into this too deeply, but it looks like it's multiplayer. They got some sort of matching service if you would like to play with somebody else. So it seems like a really good project worth checking out if you are into Doon 2. And that's all for this week's Matt Chat. I sure hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, then please drop a line to your friends, post it on your Twitter account, put it on your Facebook status update, write it on a cocktail napkin and give it to a strange woman in a bar. I don't care, but help me spread the word about this show. I really appreciate it. You can also join us at armchairarcade.com, where we've just released episode 2 of Armchair Arcade Radio, where yours truly goes on for about 30 minutes in a fairly emotional rant about classical computer role-playing games. What made them classic and why the new ones just don't hold up. So if you like this show, I think you will enjoy that. I thought I would leave you with a quotation from Frank Herbert's Doon. This is one of my favorite novels. I think I have about 3 different editions of it. If you haven't ever read this, I would strongly suggest getting this from a library or ordering it from Amazon. I guarantee you won't be dissatisfied with this. But anyway, I thought this quotation really fit well with the context of the game. A process cannot be understood by stopping it. Understanding must move with the flow of the process, must join with it and flow with it. I'll see you guys next week.